Okay, so I'm really excited about this episode because it's about Crime and Punishment, which, as cliche as it uh, is I'm pretty sure my favorite book. Um, Harry Potter's pretty good, but Crime and Punishment was amazing, and I'll it has to do from a mental health perspective why it was so amazing for me, and I will touch on that um, towards the end of the video, where I'll talk about how it helped me understand a friend of mine. So let's start with the author. It's Fyodor Dostoevsky, Russian novelist. This book was first published in 1866 in Russian. Uh, it was written during a time of great social, political, and spiritual turmoil in Russia, um, kind of like a revolutionary time. Um, Tolstoy was also writing around this time, so there's a lot of just like rethinking things. Not exactly revolutionary like 1917 revolution in Russia, but still revolutionary. Um, it's considered one of the greatest literary works of all time, and it delves into the psychology of crime and the complexities of moral dilemmas. Um, Kind of is similar in the sense to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, in terms of that book helped, from a fiction perspective, helped you understand what drug addiction's like. This book, I think, helps understand what a crime is like and why people commit crimes. Um, so a little bit of trivia. So Dostoevsky's actually own experiences and his observations heavily influenced the themes of this book. It has a very strange writing style. Dostoevsky wrote this book under a lot of pressure of debt, gambling problems, and deadlines, which definitely influenced not only the intense and urgent writing style, but the um, the protagonist definitely experiences this also. It was a serial publication. The novel was first published in a literary journal called The Russian Messenger, and it was published in 12 monthly installments. So the book was separated into 12 parts. Um, the philosophical underpinnings of this book reflects existentialism, utilitarianism, and nature of good and evil. Definitely a lot of existentialism on the part of the protagonist. He struggles hella. Um, and you know, it is, from a psychological perspective, extremely insightful, um, of what people think when they are just depressed and anxious and just in a rotten place. So, brief synopsis: main character, his name is Rodion Raskolnikov, who was a former student living in poverty in St. Petersburg. So, and the plot basically is Raskolnikov, he formulates a plan to murder a pawnbroker named Alyona Ivanovna. And um, he justifies this as a means to steal her money and perform good deeds to counterbalance the crime. So he kind of like does like good things, like being generous and giving tips and helping people and all that stuff. So it's kind of like this like strange combination of activities of good and bad. Um, However, the real darkness happens after the murder. So Raskolnikov, he's consumed by this guilt and paranoia, which even before the murder, he was in a horrible, horrible place. But after the murder, feels so guilty, he's so paranoid that everybody is going to catch him, and he struggles with this so terribly. Um, and he kind of like basically ends up confessing. And he feels like he needs to confess. He feels like he has no choice but to confess. And he's sentenced to prison in Siberia. And basically, towards the end, he has this like gradual spiritual awakening because of this confession. Um, and because of his support by Sonia, who is a prostitute who becomes basically Raskolnikov's friend, I guess you could say girlfriend, um, and Yeah. So in terms of for me, it's been was really helpful this book to understand a good friend of mine at the time he was struggling so bad with mental health issues that he couldn't even leave his uh, house many times. He was just sleeping so much, so depressed, so um, edgy, and was in such a rut. And you know, we have people in our lives like that sometimes, and it's not a pleasant situation. Uh, and one of the reasons why it's not pleasant is because it's hard to understand what these people are going through. Um, and it's just like drug addiction. It's an unpleasant situation. It's hard to understand what they're going through. And these fiction novels are so amazing. You can read a 1,000-page textbook on drug addiction. You can read a 1,000-page textbook on crime, and you will not have the insights that you have from this book, Crime and Punishment, and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And I mean, I think that's why these books stood the test of time and why we're still talking about this. This is over 150 years ago. This book was written, and not only are we talking about it, but it's being talked about as one of the best books of all time. And I think that's it's again, it's cliche for me to love it so much, but I mean, I get it why it's so loved and why people think it's the greatest because it creates like this empathy in others, but also it could also be almost like an antidote for yourself. Not everybody's addicted to drugs, not everybody commits crimes, but maybe reading Crime and Punishment and reading Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde isn't like a not an antidote, a vaccine against committing crimes and getting addicted to drugs because you kind of understand how they got there and maybe you could prevent that for yourself. So, would love to know your thoughts on Crime and Punishment, and also if you hated it. I would love to know. I would love to have a comment from someone that says, "I hate Crime and Punishment. It was terrible," and why. All right, peace.